John has always blindly trusted Rebecca, his wife of 7 years. The nights in Boston were peaceful, and he never suspected anything was wrong in his marriage. But that night, something woke him up. Maybe it was the faint rustle of a dress or an inaudible whisper. He half opened his eyes and, with his heart racing, saw Rebecca sneaking through the door, thinking he was still fast asleep. Intrigued and alarmed, John silently got up and followed her, keeping a safe distance. She crossed the street and entered the house of her neighbor, Sam, a man John had always considered a good friend. The scene that unfolded before his eyes was devastating. In Sam's embrace, Rebecca gave herself in a way John never imagined possible. His world collapsed in that instant. What Rebecca didn't know was that while she thought he was asleep, John was now awake to a new reality. A reality where betrayal would turn into cold and calculated revenge. But there was something deeper to this betrayal, something John still didn't fully understand. Boston, with its historic streets and vibrant atmosphere, was the perfect setting for John and Rebecca's lives. They lived in a charming Beacon Hill neighborhood, where the old houses and cobblestone streets created a cozy atmosphere. John, a talented architect, was respected for his ability to combine old and new in his works. Rebecca, with her warm nature and easy smile, won over everyone around her. She worked as a social worker, helping struggling families, and was adored by her colleagues and clients. John and Rebecca's marriage seemed perfect to everyone who knew them. They were the neighborhood's model couple, always together at community events, walking hand in hand through parks, and enjoying romantic dinners at local restaurants. However, the apparent perfection hid a routine that, little by little, undermined the passion and connection between them. John put in long hours at work, often arriving home late, exhausted. Rebecca, in turn, felt increasingly lonely and longed for something that would make her feel alive again. It was in this scenario that Sam entered their lives. Sam, the friendly and outgoing neighbor, owned a coffee shop on the corner of the street. He was always around, offering fresh coffee and lively conversation. His presence was a constant that brought Rebecca comfort. He knew how to listen and seemed to understand her feelings in a way that John no longer could. Sam's small attentions and caring way began to fill the emptiness she felt. John, in turn, saw Sam as a trustworthy friend. He would often join Sam for coffee and talk about life, never suspecting the bond that was forming between Sam and Rebecca. For John, Sam was a welcome part of the community, someone he could count on to keep an eye on Rebecca when he couldn't be there. Daily routines continued, with John dedicating himself to architectural projects and Rebecca dividing her time between work and her growing friendship with Sam. Afternoons at the coffee shop became an escape for Rebecca, where she could relax and be herself without the burden of marital responsibilities. Sam, always attentive, knew exactly what to say to make Rebecca feel special and wanted. As the days turned into weeks and then months, John began to notice small changes in Rebecca. She was more distant, lost in thought, and often left the house without explaining. When he asked, she responded evasively, saying she was busy with work or helping a friend. John, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. One night, while Rebecca was in the shower, her phone rang. John, by reflex, answered and heard Sam's voice on the other end. "I look forward to seeing you tomorrow," Sam said, before realizing it wasn't Rebecca who had answered. There was an uncomfortable silence before Sam abruptly hung up. John stood with the phone in his hand, his heart heavy with the suspicion that was beginning to form. Over the next few days, John began to pay more attention to Rebecca's behavior. He noticed how she dressed up more to go out, even if it was just for a quick walk. She was more emotionally distant, and her excuses to leave the house became more frequent. John, now more vigilant, decided to follow Rebecca one night, determined to discover the truth. It was on that fateful night that he saw her quietly leave the house and go to Sam's house. John followed at a safe distance, his heart racing. Seeing Rebecca in Sam's arms, confirmation of his betrayal fell upon him like an avalanche. He returned home, devastated but determined not to let this go unnoticed. Rebecca, on the other hand, had no idea that her movements had been monitored. For her, the night with Sam was a refuge, an escape from daily frustrations. She didn't realize the abyss that was opening between her and John, nor the storm that was about to hit their lives. John spent the next week meticulously planning his revenge. He knew that confronting Rebecca directly could lead to an emotional outburst that he wanted to avoid. Instead, he opted for a colder, more calculated approach. He began collecting evidence of the betrayal, keeping photos and records of his outings. He also began investigating Sam's past, looking for anything he could use against him. Throughout these weeks, John remained calm on the surface, but inside, he was seething with anger and pain. Rebecca, oblivious to what was to come, continued her encounters with Sam, believing that his betrayal was well hidden. John's plan was almost complete when he made a discovery that would change everything. By digging through old documents and public records, he discovered that Sam and Rebecca had a past together that he was unaware of. They had been college friends and had a relationship that had never been mentioned. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was an emotional conspiracy that went back years. This discovery intensified John's determination. He wasn't just dealing with a recent betrayal, but a history of lies and deceit that had made him feel like a fool for all those years. His revenge needed to be deeper and more devastating. He planned each step with precision, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth and destroy those responsible for his pain. The stage was set. John was ready to take the next step in his revenge plan, aware that once started, there would be no turning back. John woke up every day with renewed purpose. His steps were firm, his gaze determined. The man who was once known for his patience and serenity now hit a volcano of emotions, ready to explode at the right moment. What kept him going was the promise of justice he made to himself every morning. Rebecca continued her routine, oblivious to the plan unfolding in the shadows. She believed her secret was safe, but she couldn't be more wrong. John began to act differently, more attentive to Rebecca and Sam's interactions, but without arousing suspicion. He pretended indifference, smiled at the right times and stayed close to Sam, fueling the false trust between them. During their chance encounters at the coffee shop, John began asking Sam subtle questions about his past, trying to confirm his findings. He talked about college, old friends, and events. Sam, unaware of the trap, responded matter-of-factly, inadvertently confirming the connections John had found. Each answer was another piece in the puzzle that John put together with meticulous precision. Over time, John realized he needed allies for his plan. He reached out to an old friend, Michael, a private detective, and confided in him about the situation. Michael, with his experience and resources, was able to provide John with additional information about Sam and Rebecca's past. They discovered that the connection between the two was deeper than John had imagined. They had ended abruptly, and from the looks of it, Sam had never gotten over Rebecca. This explained his insistence on getting closer to her. John decided it was time to move forward. He began to act more assertively, organizing social gatherings at his home, always inviting Sam. During these events, he carefully observed Rebecca and Sam's interactions, noticing how the fleeting glances and touches became more frequent. He encouraged these meetings, but always with a hidden intention, preparing the ground for the outcome he planned. One night, John hosted a dinner party at his house and invited some neighbors, including Sam. During dinner, he deliberately started talking about past relationships, bringing up stories from college. He casually mentioned how some relationships left deep scars and looked directly at Sam, who looked uncomfortable. Rebecca, surprised by the direction of the conversation, tried to change the subject, but John persisted. It was his way of pressing, of observing their reactions from a new angle. After dinner, while everyone was still present, John made a toast. He talked about trust and loyalty, looking intently at Rebecca and Sam. The discomfort in the room was palpable, but no one dared speak. When the guests finally left, John fixed Rebecca with a look she couldn't decipher. She tried to kiss him, but he pulled away, murmuring that he needed some air. The next day, John decided to follow Rebecca again. He already knew she would find Sam, but this time he wanted more proof. Armed with a camera, he documented everything, ensuring he had irrefutable evidence for the right moment. Each photograph, each video was a stab in his heart, but he endured the pain, feeding on the promise of revenge. Rebecca continued to live her double life, not realizing that her house of cards was about to collapse. John, for his part, kept his plan going. He began to plant little seeds of doubt in Rebecca, insinuating that he knew more than she realized. At key moments, he would make cryptic comments, watching their reactions carefully. One rainy night, while Rebecca was with Sam, John entered his neighbor's house using a key he had copied. He searched the house for anything he could use against Sam. In Sam's office, John found old letters, email exchanges, and even photos of Rebecca and Sam at college. They were concrete proof that the betrayal was not just physical, but emotional and historical. With these new discoveries, John felt more prepared than ever. He knew he needed to choose the perfect moment for the revelation. He planned a surprise trip for Rebecca, a weekend away from the city. Rebecca, without suspecting anything, accepted enthusiastically, believing it was a gesture of reconciliation. On the trip, John maintained the facade of a loving husband. They walked along the beach, had a candlelit dinner and talked about the future. But deep down, John was waiting for the right moment to drop the bomb. He had prepared a dossier with all the evidence he had collected, including the discoveries about Sam and Rebecca's past. On the last night of the trip, John suggested that they review their marriage promises, something symbolic to rekindle the flame. Rebecca, moved, agreed. They went to the beach, where John had prepared a romantic setting with candles and flowers. Halfway through the ceremony, John stopped and looked deeply into Rebecca's eyes. "Before we continue, there's something I need to show you," he said, taking the dossier out of his backpack. Rebecca, confused, took the envelope and began to read. With each page turned, his face changed, turning from surprise to horror. When he finished, tears were streaming down his face. "How could you?" she whispered, but John didn't respond. He got up and walked to the water, leaving Rebecca alone with the evidence of his betrayal. The silence of the night was broken only by the sound of the waves, and at that moment, Rebecca realized that her world was about to fall apart. John not only knew about the recent betrayal, but also about the entire hidden past that she never had the courage to reveal. With the dossier in hand, John was ready for the climax of his revenge, where all the pieces would finally fall into place, revealing the complete picture of deceit and betrayal. The stage was set, and the moment of truth was inexorably approaching. That last night of the trip was just the beginning of the turmoil that was about to hit Rebecca. When they returned to Boston, the silence between the two was almost palpable. Rebecca knew that John knew something, but the extent of his knowledge was still a mystery to her. John, in turn, was more determined than ever to dismantle the web of lies that shrouded his marriage. The morning after the trip, John woke up early and left the house before Rebecca could say anything. He knew he needed time and space to organize his next steps. He went to Sam's coffee shop, where he found him preparing the morning orders. Sam, always welcoming, smiled when he saw John. "John. How was the trip?" asked Sam, with a friendliness that now seemed false to John. "It was eye-opening," John replied, with a tone that made Sam raise an eyebrow. "We need to talk, Sam. There's something I need to show you." Confused but curious, Sam agreed and the two sat down at a table in the back of the coffee shop. John took the dossier out of his backpack and placed it on the table, opening it to the first page. Sam looked at the documents, and his expression went from curiosity to panic as he recognized the contents. "What is this, John?" Sam asked, trying to stay calm. "It's the truth, Sam. The truth about you and Rebecca. I know about your past, about the betrayal that's been going on right under my nose. And now, I want to hear from you. Why? What did you gain from that? Sam swallowed hard, realizing there was no way to escape. John, I don't know what to say. Me and Rebecca have a history, yes, but I swear I didn't want this to happen. Didn't you want that to happen? John repeated, his voice rising. You think I'm an idiot, Sam? You destroyed my marriage, my world, and now you want to escape. The conversation in the cafeteria started to attract looks, and Sam realized he needed to change seats. Let's go to my house, John. Let's talk there. This isn't the place. John agreed, and the two went to Sam's house. As soon as they entered, John felt anger boiling again as he saw the familiarities he shared with Rebecca spread throughout Sam's house. Photos, memories, all the evidence of a parallel life. You're going to tell me everything, Sam. Every detail. And if you lie, I'll know, John said, with a coldness that made Sam shiver. Sam took a deep breath and started counting. I met Rebecca in college, as you already know. We were very close, but we had a difficult breakup. I never forgot her. When we met again here, in Boston, it was like all those feelings came back. I knew it was wrong, but... John, I was in love with her. I still am. John listened to each word carefully, controlling the anger that threatened to boil over. And Rebecca? How does she feel about you? Sam hesitated. She said she still loves me, but she also loves you. She's torn, John. This isn't easy for her. Isn't it easy for her? John laughed bitterly. What about me, Sam? Is it easy for me? I trusted you both, and look what I get in return. But that ends today. You're going to cut all ties with Rebecca. You're going to tell her it's over, that you'll never again want to see her. John, please understand. It's not that simple, Sam pleaded, but John's expression made it clear there was no room for negotiation. You have no choice, Sam. If you don't do this, I will destroy your life. I have enough evidence to do that. Think about it. Sam knew he was cornered. With a resigned nod, he agreed. I'll do as you say, John. I'll break up with her. John left Sam's house, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The first part of his plan was complete, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. He needed to confront Rebecca and make her understand the gravity of her actions. When he returned home, Rebecca was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She looked at John with an apprehensive expression. We can talk, she asked, voice shaking. Yes, we can, replied John, sitting down at the table. There's a lot we need to clear up, Rebecca. She sat across from him, her eyes full of tears. John, I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, but I need you to understand. I felt so alone. You were always so distant, so focused on work. I looked for comfort where I shouldn't have. I was distant because I was working for us, Rebecca. For our future. And you chose to betray that trust, John replied, voice firm. I know, and I'm sorry. But Sam, he made me feel alive again. I know that doesn't justify anything, but it's the truth. I've already spoken to Sam, John said, noting the surprise on Rebecca's face. He agreed to break up with you. You two have nothing to do with each other anymore. Rebecca was silent for a moment, absorbing John's words. And you? What are you going to do now? I haven't decided yet, replied John honestly. But one thing is certain, things will not go back to the way they were. You destroyed something we may never get back. Those words hung in the air, heavy and definitive. Rebecca knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to try to win back John's trust, even if it took years. John, in turn, was torn between the love he still felt for Rebecca and the need to protect himself from further pain. The night dragged on in a tense silence, everyone lost in their own thoughts. Betrayal had opened the door wide open to secrets and resentments that had long been buried, and now they both needed to find a way to deal with the consequences. In the days that followed, the tension between John and Rebecca was palpable. Both tried to regain a semblance of normality, but the truth about the betrayal and the past shared with Sam hung like a shadow over their lives. Rebecca made a conscious effort to distance herself from Sam, avoiding the coffee shop and cutting off all contact with him. John watched these changes with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness, aware that the scars of this betrayal would never completely disappear. John immersed himself even more in his work, looking for a form of distraction from the pain he felt. Hours at the office became his refuge, a place where he could focus on something other than the collapse of his marriage. Rebecca, in turn, dedicated herself intensely to her work as a social worker, finding solace in helping others. However, the facade of normality they both tried to maintain began to crumble when John received an unexpected call from Michael, his detective friend. "John, I found something you need to see." "It's about Sam," Michael said, his voice deep. "Meet me in my office tonight." John felt a chill run down his spine. What else could there be to discover? He left work early and headed to Michael's office, where he was greeted with a serious face. Michael opened a file on the computer and showed John a series of documents and photos. "Sam isn't just a coffee shop owner, John. He's involved in shady dealings. Money laundering, influence peddling. He uses the coffee shop as a front," Michael explained. "And it appears that Rebecca was involved, perhaps without knowing it." John gaped. The revelation that Sam was a criminal turned his anger into an urgent need to protect Rebecca. "Does she know that?" he asked, trying to process the information. "I'm not sure, but we need to find out," Michael replied. "This changes everything, John. If Rebecca is involved, even unintentionally, she could be in danger." John left Michael's office with his mind racing. He returned home determined to confront Rebecca once again, but this time with a new purpose, to discover the full truth and protect her from the possible consequences. When he got home, he found Rebecca in the living room, leafing through an album of old photos. "We need to talk," John said bluntly. "I found out something about Sam that you need to know." Rebecca looked at him with curiosity and apprehension. "What is it?" "Sam is not who you think he is. He is involved in illegal business. Money laundering, influence peddling, and I need to know if you are aware of this." Rebecca was silent for a moment, processing John's words. I didn't know. I always thought he was just a friend, someone I could count on. I never imagined he would be involved in something like this," Rebecca said, her voice shaking. "I feel like I don't know who to trust anymore." John felt a wave of relief, but also worry. "This is serious, Rebecca. If Sam is involved in illegal activities, it could affect us. We need to be careful. He is dangerous, and we need to protect you from any implications." Rebecca nodded, visibly shaken. "I don't know what to do, John. I feel like I'm trapped. I never wanted things to come to this." "We'll deal with this together," John said, his tone now softer. "But first, we need to find out what else he's hiding and make sure you don't get caught up in his business. I'll continue to investigate with Michael, and you need to keep your distance from Sam at all costs." Over the next few days, John and Michael intensified their investigation. They discovered that Sam used the coffee shop as a perfect cover for his illegal operations. Financial documents, suspicious transactions and encounters with shadowy figures have been unearthed, painting an increasingly grim picture. Meanwhile, Rebecca tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the growing tension at home was undeniable. Every ring on the phone, every knock on the door made his heart race. She knew she was being watched, that Sam wasn't the only problem they needed to face. John decided it was time to confront Sam directly with the new discoveries. He knew this could be dangerous, but he also knew he needed to protect Rebecca at any cost. With Michael by his side, he devised a plan to expose Sam and his criminal activities. One cold, rainy night, John and Michael went to Sam's house. They knew he would be alone, and the heavy rain would ensure that few would be around to witness the confrontation. When Sam opened the door and saw John and Michael, his face contorted with surprise and suspicion. "John, what are you doing here?" Sam asked, trying to maintain his composure. "We need to talk, Sam." "Now," John said, pushing open the door and entering. "I know about your dealings. I know about the money laundering, the influence peddling. And I know you used Rebecca as a pawn in your dirty game." Sam tried to deny it, but Michael was ready with the evidence. He showed documents, photos and recordings that indisputably incriminated Sam. "You're finished, Sam. Either you cooperate with us and turn yourself in, or this evidence goes straight to the police," Michael said. Sam was silent, weighing his options. Finally, he gave in. "Okay, I'll cooperate. But you guys need to protect me. The people I'm dealing with are dangerous. They won't stop until we're all dead." John and Michael agreed, but they knew Sam's word wasn't enough. They needed more to ensure Rebecca's safety and dismantle Sam's criminal operation. With Sam's cooperation, they began to gather more evidence, while John continued to protect Rebecca, keeping her safe and informed of new developments. The tension at home began to ease as Rebecca distanced herself from Sam and focused on rebuilding her relationship with John. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face the challenges that lay ahead together. With Sam's collaboration, John and Michael were able to gather enough evidence to involve the police. A carefully planned operation was mounted to arrest everyone involved in the criminal network. On the night of the raid, Sam was placed under police protection, while John and Rebecca anxiously awaited news. The news of the arrest of several criminals and the dismantling of the network brought momentary relief to John and Rebecca, but they knew they still had a long way to go. The trauma of betrayal and the dangers they faced left deep scars. Rebecca, remorseful and willing to regain John's trust, dedicated herself to repairing her marriage. John, in turn, decided they needed a fresh start. They sold their house in Boston and moved to a small country town where they could start anew, away from the painful memories. Life in the new city brought peace and tranquility to the couple. They rediscovered the joy of being together, slowly rebuilding the love and trust that had been destroyed. John continued his work as an architect, while Rebecca found a new passion teaching arts to underprivileged children. The past, although never completely forgotten, has been left behind. John and Rebecca have learned to cherish every moment together, knowing that life can change in an instant. They vowed never again to let distrust and silence come between them. And so, John and Rebecca's story of love and betrayal found a new chapter, where forgiveness and redemption became the foundations of a future together. John's cold revenge turned into a lesson in resilience and renewal, showing that even in the darkest situations, there is always a chance to start over. John and Rebecca have settled into their new home in the small town, a refuge far from the hustle and bustle of Boston and the painful memories they left behind. The new routine brought a sense of normalcy that they hadn't experienced in a long time. John dedicated himself to local architectural projects, finding pleasure in building something solid and lasting. Rebecca, with her passion for teaching, found herself involved with children in the community, inspiring young minds through art. Despite the newfound tranquility, the impact of the betrayal still hung over them like a shadow. The nights were quieter, the conversations more cautious. Both were aware that healing would take time and effort. There was a fragility in trust that they needed to rebuild with care and patience. One day, while John was at work, Rebecca received an unexpected visitor. It was Michael, the detective, with an expression that mixed seriousness and urgency. "Rebecca, we need to talk," he said, entering the house. Rebecca offered him a coffee, trying to hide her apprehension. "What happened, Michael? Any news on Sam?" Michael nodded. "Yes, but it's not good news. Sam has escaped police protection. He has disappeared, and there are rumors that he is seeking revenge on those who betrayed him. Rebecca felt a chill. Do you think he might come after us? It's a possibility, Michael replied. That's why I'm here. I want you to take extra precautions. If he comes to this city, we need to be prepared. Rebecca thanked Michael and promised to inform John as soon as he returned. The rest of the day passed in a blur of worry. The idea that Sam could reappear and bring more chaos into their lives was terrifying. She knew she needed to tell John immediately. When John arrived home, Rebecca greeted him with the news. John, although worried, remained calm. Let's tighten security at home. We can't let him intimidate us again. We've been through too much to let fear dominate us now. They began taking practical steps to protect their home and ensure they were safe. They installed security cameras, changed the locks and kept an eye out for any signs of suspicious activity. The small town, once a symbol of peace, now seemed charged with tension and vigilance. Meanwhile, John and Rebecca continued to work on their relationship. John made a conscious effort to be more present and open, sharing his thoughts and feelings with Rebecca. Rebecca, in turn, dedicated herself to showing John that he could trust her again. They began attending couples therapy, where they were able to address the deep wounds they still carried. Therapy brought many unresolved emotions to the surface, but it also opened a path to healing. They learned to communicate better, express their needs, and understand each other's perspectives. The process was painful but necessary. Each session was a step towards rebuilding a bond that was almost destroyed. Over time, Sam's threat began to seem less imminent. The weeks passed without incident, and John and Rebecca began to relax, returning to a more normal routine. The small town was once again a haven of tranquility, and life seemed to be finally getting back on track. But John knew they couldn't let their guard down completely. He remained in contact with Michael, receiving regular updates on the search for Sam. The latest news was that Sam had been seen in another city, far away, with no sign of returning to Boston. This apparent distance from Sam gave John and Rebecca a renewed sense of security. They started planning a future together again, talking about trips they wanted to take and projects they wanted to tackle. The possibility of a true fresh start seemed more real every day. Rebecca smiled more again, finding joy in the little things in everyday life. John, seeing this, felt a huge weight lifted from his shoulders. The trust they were rebuilding became stronger and stronger. The scars of betrayal were still there, but now they were signs of a battle overcome together. One day, as they were walking through the city park, John stopped and looked at Rebecca. You know, despite everything, I think we're stronger now, he said, holding her hand. Rebecca smiled and shook his hand. Yes, we are. We've been through a lot, but we're here. And that's what matters. The walk in the park, under the clear, sunny sky, seemed to symbolize the path they still had ahead of them. A path that, despite the obstacles, promised to be walked side by side, with the trust and love that they were learning to rebuild. Now, with peace beginning to settle in and Sam's threat receding, John and Rebecca were ready for the next chapter of their lives. A chapter where they could finally find the happiness and stability they sought so much. But even so, they were aware that the past would always have an impact on them, shaping their choices and strengthening their union. The calm in which John and Rebecca had found solace was suddenly interrupted one autumn night. John was reviewing projects in his home office while Rebecca was preparing dinner. The doorbell rang, an unexpected sound that echoed through the house. John looked out the window and saw Michael, the detective, with an expression he knew well, urgency and concern. "Michael, what happened?" asked John, opening the door. "We need to talk." Sam was seen nearby. He managed to evade police surveillance and is seeking revenge. "You guys aren't safe here," Michael said, quickly entering. Rebecca, overhearing their conversation, joined them in the living room. "What should we do? We can't continue living in this fear." Michael suggested that they stay in a safe location until Sam was captured again. He had provided a place outside the city where they could hide. John and Rebecca agreed, despite the awkwardness of the situation. That same night, they took some essential clothes and documents and left under the cover of darkness. The safe place was an isolated house, surrounded by dense trees, where they could wait until the situation was under control. The days passed slowly. John and Rebecca, although in a safe place, could not shake the feeling of being hunted. The tension was palpable. Michael visited them regularly, bringing news of the investigation. With each visit, the hope that Sam would be captured grew, but he always seemed one step ahead. One night, while John and Rebecca were in the living room, the light suddenly failed. The silence that followed was piercing. John grabbed a flashlight and began to investigate. As he approached the back door, he saw a shadow moving quickly. His heart raced. "Rebecca, lock the doors and call the police," he whispered, trying to remain calm. Before he could react, the door was kicked down and Sam walked in, his expression wild and desperate. "You think you can hide from me? You can't escape what you did," shouted Sam, brandishing a gun. John, trying to maintain his composure, spoke firmly. "Sam, you need to stop. It's not going to solve anything like this. Leave Rebecca out of this." Sam, ignoring the plea, advanced. Rebecca, with shaking hands, managed to call the police before Sam saw her. "They're on their way, Sam. It doesn't have to be like this," she said, trying to stall for time. Michael, who was on his way to visit, heard the emergency broadcast over the police radio and sped off. He knew that every second counted. When he arrived at the house, he heard screams coming from inside. With gun in hand, he entered through the back door. The scene he encountered was chaotic. Sam held Rebecca, threatening her while John tried to negotiate. Michael, quickly assessing the situation, knew he needed to act without provoking further violence. "Sam, drop the gun. There's no way out for you," Michael said, his voice calm but commanding. Sam, noticing Michael's presence, became even more agitated. "You all betrayed me. I have nothing to lose." It was at that moment that the police arrived, surrounding the house. With all exits blocked, Sam realized he was trapped. In a last act of desperation, he pushed Rebecca away and pointed the gun at John. "If I fall, you fall with me," he murmured. Before he could pull the trigger, Michael acted. In a quick and precise movement, he fired, hitting Sam in the shoulder and causing him to fall. The police broke into the house and arrested Sam, finally putting an end to the nightmare he represented. Rebecca ran to John, who was unharmed but visibly shaken. "It's over," she said, hugging him tightly. "It's finally over." The days that followed were of recovery. Sam was taken into custody, and further investigation revealed the extent of his crimes. He would face a long trial and likely spend the rest of his life in prison. John and Rebecca, now free from Sam's shadow, were finally able to focus on their future. The experience had marked them deeply, but it had also strengthened them in ways they could never have imagined. They decided to remain in the small town, where they would rebuild their lives with a new perspective. The trauma brought them together in a way that transcended the pain of betrayal. They knew they had overcome a terrible ordeal and emerged stronger on the other side. One quiet afternoon, as they walked through the park they loved so much, John stopped and looked at Rebecca with new determination. "We did it. We've been through the worst and we're here, stronger than ever. I promise you that I will do everything to protect and love you, always." Rebecca smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. "I promise too, John. We are unbreakable now. Nothing can bring us down." And so, John and Rebecca's story, marked by betrayal, revenge and redemption, found an ending where love and strength prevailed. The past served as a constant reminder of their struggles, but also as a testament to their resilience and ability to start over, together, more united than ever.